or what, but
the air outside's quite warm, but I think it's colder indoors.
Well, it's getting to that point where do you leave the heating on all day, or do you let it turn it off and turn it back on again in the evening and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's these complications of working at home. When you work in an office, you just have the heating on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the picture behind you, Anne-Marie? Is that one of yours?
It is, Mike. It is. I'll just do a quick. So it's got about another 2 layers to go, and then all it's gilding that's going to be put on it. 24 karat gold leaf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then it goes off to its home. It's already got a home, which is good.
Oh, right. I was going to say, is that?
Yeah,
I see Lucy's doing the same as you, Cerin. She's putting coats on.
Oh, I'm just going to have a quick check where Pasha's off to. Won't be a second. Pasha, come on.
Yeah, I got a little bit chilly.
Yeah.
Didn't expect to, but realised that sitting still.
Mike, will you send me the details for the publicity place at Marshbrook? Because as I was setting up today, so you get to see more of my office than you normally would. You get to see all the untidy shelves as well. Because I broke my banner, not your banner, but my banner.
Right. Yeah. It's Marshbrook print.
Needs retreading. Come on then.
Marshbrook print. Steve Rooney. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you the numbers on that. But you know where the station inn is at Marshbrook?
Yeah.
Just there. That's where the place is. Where they've got those new glamping pods by the pub there.
Oh, it's there. Oh, it's them. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's just he's the other side of the road to there.
I'll see if he can rethread it for me next week. I just went to put it off and the top fell off it. It just came on.
That's it's very exciting what you're saying about the Canadians, Naomi. Have you got? There's the famous one from Alaska. Who's the Inuit? Is he part of it? I'm trying to struggle for his name now, aren't I? Because I've mentioned it.
Dan Yatinsky?
No, not Dan. No.
No, he's a different one. But I'm just going. Oh, what Canadian storytellers do I know that might be?
No, I've got one.
It's Ivan Coyote and Marta Singh and Tamar Ilana.
Cool. Oh, okay. Sounds cool. Yeah. They won't let you down.
All quite different.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the interesting things at the moment, isn't it? Is having to negotiate all these different time zones as well. So luckily for this meeting, we're all in the same time zone, but I've been having meetings at really weird times. I don't know about you. And that's another reason why it's so exhausting, is because you never actually turn off. It's like it's a 24-hour day, isn't it, lately?
Yeah, and
it's also just that. Sorry.
I used to get really critical about people sending me emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I used to call them unorganized and things like that if you were working at 2 o'clock. But if you happen to be in like Bulgaria, it's now, or the southern hemisphere or something, it's in the daytime,
Yeah. Yep. So
I found that whole thing. Oh, sorry. How are you?
I was just going to say, Amy I was just looking at what time we're on, and okay, carry on. Sorry, Amy.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Well, if you want me to start, I can. We're going to give Richard a minute.
I was just going to give it. Yeah, that's all I was looking at. I was literally just looking at the time and saying it out loud.
I was only going to say just that it's been really weird for me as somebody who's put lots of people and wanted them to represent their culture and just talk about where they come from, of how difficult that actually is, because which I had no idea of before, of kind of zooming in at 7 o'clock in the morning to Namibia to lots of 13-year-olds and not knowing what their day-to-day reality is, and not knowing if the story that I'm going to tell them is really well known in their country, or if there's just lots of things in there that is so beyond their day-to-day reality they're not going to understand it at all. And doing that over online as well, so that you don't get a feel of them and you haven't actually driven up to that school, so you don't know what the view outside the window is, how how completely overwhelming that was of what to tell them, and kind of, you know, and the things that I would normally do to settle people down are kind of riddles and things as well, although, you know, they're you know, their first language is English, so, or certainly it's kind of that's the school language, so their English is pretty good, but just kind of what references are are there, and what are just would just go over the head. And I found that really tricky, and that was just a really interesting insight into what I've asked lots of other people to do, thinking, oh, that's not quite a difficult thing to do. So yeah. Anyway, everybody's back, so yes, so thank you very much, Arts Council. Hurrah. They have given me money for a research and development project bid, which is what I'm doing. I would add reflection and response to the research and development. So there are two main strands to what I'm trying to do at the moment. So the first strand is a series of podcasts specifically in response to Black Lives Matter, all with different types of artists. So one is my cousin, who is a graffiti artist. One is the Birmingham Poet Laureate, and one is Sheila Arnold, who is a storyteller working in the States. So they have very, very different points of view on that. And that's my sort of personal response, and wanting to give those people a platform for me to learn more. But as I was saying earlier, I mean, my audience is at the moment mostly white, mostly rural, mostly of a certain age, mostly very frightened to ask questions, and the few little bits that I've put up so far has had the response that I thought, where most of the other white people, to be fair, have, as soon as you start talking about race, they start jumping down your neck and telling you you're doing it wrong, which is sort of that really interesting thing of, I think lots of people have got, you know, want to do things well, want to do the right thing, but as soon as they open their mouths, even though there's been this thing with Black Lives Matter going, we need white people to be part of the conversation, we need to have a conversation, we need to have these difficult conversations. When you start, there's so much volatility and so much feeling around that actually there's still an awful lot of fear of anybody actually just finding out and asking those questions, because they think they're going to get stomped on. So there's a certain amount, kind of, at least I can do that and ask some of those stupid questions with people that I've discussed about with that before, who are happy to talk about those issues, and people can listen to them with a certain amount of safety. So that's one strand. The other and bigger strand is working with Lucy Wells, who I love to work with, have worked on a couple of collaborations and performance pieces in the past. And you haven't met her properly yet. She's the one person who hasn't got to talk, so I'm not going to talk about her, I'm going to let her talk for herself. So here's Lucy Wells.
Oh, I better unmute. Good evening, except it's good morning, everyone. And for those of you that haven't met me,
Everybody else has got cats.
my name is Lucy, and I think I was trying to think how best to describe myself. And I think it's best to say that I'm multidisciplinary. And I've really loved hearing what everyone's been saying about this, all the online, offline, all the points that everyone's been making is really exciting, actually. Exciting to hear the creative response that we're all having to make to this era that we're in. I've collaborated with Amy, and we've devised a couple of performance pieces in the recent years. I've got a background in puppet work, shadow puppets, as well as other kind of street performing kind of things, as well as a medicine practice. So one of the things that's been very, very interesting in our work together is where in using fire in its primal form as a meeting place. So as Amy said that she works with traditional storytellers, and her work with Duncan, and as Mike mentioned that people were wanting just to join around the fire, that fire is a big element in the way that we work together. So it's been a really fascinating and a great opportunity, actually, this recent grant, to be exploring this spectrum of low tech, high tech. and how that then reaches out into as many people, and as other people have said, it goes international, it goes through to audiences that we wouldn't have, and people that we wouldn't have reached before. So that's my connection in here through this project that we're working on. Back over to you, Rain. You're muted now.
I clicked the button. It didn't like me. Anyway, one of the things that I love about working with Lucy, and it's and I love to collaborate generally, and you do find there are some people you can collaborate with and some that are less easy to collaborate with. One of the big things that when I work with Lucy and when we perform, sometimes it might look like I'm doing more than Lucy, but it's always actually, I think, a very equal partnership. And what we do really well together is hold space. And I think that's been a really interesting thing in these times about holding space, which all performers do. And I don't think people talk about it all that much. And you still need to hold space, whether it's online or it's live or it's real person. And how you do that is a really interesting thing. And one of the joys for me was that I saw you can hold space online and you can still feel the weight and kind of the edges of that. And that's been quite an interesting journey for me. But this project, the point of it is to play and to keep our groundedness, to keep who we are and reach out into lots of different spaces. When I first started, I was thinking that this would be more of in a physical space, of creating an actual narrative-based installation. And it was something I was interested in doing anyway, and thought, well, that's actually perfect for social distancing. I was really interested in the idea of labyrinths and the journeys that you go on your own. And when you're telling somebody a story, you are taking them on a journey. And it's that thing of you come back and you've got nothing in your hands, but you come back a slightly different person, and how you would send somebody off on a journey through narration, through story, but lots of sensory experience as well, to have a really magical experience and something where you would have to engage your imagination. And I think that would be quite interesting to take that into different spaces, whether it's a forest or whether it's a more urban environment as well. And I think that's one of the other things, perceptions about storytelling, is that it's all kind of in this very twee, nice kind of rural countryside. That is where I live. I do tell a lot of countryside stories, but stories about people and wherever people are. And I think that's quite important to have those different spaces. So the project was to work with 3 technology artists. And at the beginning, I was very much thinking about technologies that you would use in a real space. So working with light and light sculpture and projection, and we're looking at maybe floor projection now, sound sensors, and I got very excited about sonic pools of this thing that you might be able to have one thing that you look at, whether that is a bender tent, a traveller's tent, because obviously I'm kind of coming from the Duncan space and being inspired by all those traveller stories. So you might see a traveller, the shadows of a traveller family within a tent. Where you stand around in that space, you might get a story of a different person from that tent, or you might get the same story but from a totally different perspective. And if you walked all the way around, you would get the full story. It might be that you only hear one. And so different people going through the space would have a different experience and hear a different story. But most of it is just about playing at the moment. So to work with 3 technology artists, not to come up with any finished pieces, but just to explore potential and possibility. And the first person that we've worked with is Leon Trimble, who is currently doing a master's degree in performance, experimental performance with the Birmingham Conservatoire. So we went to his studio. He does lots and lots of different things. I mean, we're just going on a fact-finding mission just to see kind of what things he could do. And there were lots of things that we didn't follow up that we're quite interested in, like body mapping and heat sensors and kind of shadows of people on screen. But we started looking at 360-degree film and virtual reality. So he did quite a lot of, he did some filming of that. And he's very much likes to do live stuff. So we did do a performance at Blast, my storytelling club, where he did a live performance. We did have some technical issues, but there's just a couple of little bits of it that I'm going to share with you if I can get the timings right.
fire, spark of inspiration, flames of warmth, spark of creativity, deep heart connection, spark of curiosity, like a doorway to heat and light, igniting.
I'm gonna skip forward a little bit. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just play a few little excerpts from it. One more little piece, if I can get to the right place, that I'm going to share. And get to the right bit. So they're just a few kind of clips of his live performance, but just how quite everyday things becomes really magical when you play around with it.
And what we really found with him, wasn't it? Because he was this high-tech kind of wizard. He actually likes to, that's how he presents himself, as a kind of electronic wizard. But what we found was with the combination of the really low tech, you know, the cutout, literally pieces of black cutout card, with this kind of surround 360, really, it felt like that spectrum between low tech and high tech had huge possibilities. I mean, the glitches in the actual delivery of it are a shame, because it was really exciting, that it felt like there was a huge possibility there.
And I mean, the shadows is something that we keep coming back to anyway, and certainly started off with Miriam, and then lots of the stuff that's coming out of the Traveller stories are very much about those ideas of white and black and light and night and shadows. And I think that just shadows are a really interesting way of looking at things. And the other thing is that shadows are non-gendered as well, and just that kind of all of the stuff that is associated with that, I think, is just really gnarly, but really interesting and really exciting ways of playing with things. And you get these, so that one of the things that we want to carry on playing with is kind of the magic lantern idea. And Lucy has an amazing fire pavilion of having the fire in the middle and putting screens up around the outside and playing with the magic lantern, and how you kind of can film that and play with that so that you get that incredible low-tech, high-tech hybrid that is just where that feels like it's the exciting bit and the bit of possibility and the bit of magic. So the other big thing that was a massive kind of revelatory moment for me, and I think most of my kind of epiphany moments quite often are things that other people just take for granted, is a conversation that I had with Leon. And we were talking, and we were both talking in English, allegedly the same language, and we were just not understanding each other in any way, shape or form. And he kept pushing this idea of a game. And for me, a game is something that you play. It has something that has rules. It has something that has an end point, and you're trying to win it. And I didn't want to be involved in that. Now, I have nothing against role play. I think it's quite interesting. I'd be quite up for a game of Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't want to write stories for that environment. That's not something I'm particularly interested in doing. It turns out that is not what Leon meant. All Leon meant was a terrain building system. And that kind of, when he was talking about game, he was just talking about an online environment. And he introduced us to like a couple of games. One of them is Proteus, which is, it's an online environment where people go and then they just sit down and look at the view, which to me seems a bit pointless because it's a cartoon view, and actually I'd rather go and sit on a hillside. But people do. People just go and walk around and they're really excited by this thing when there's nothing to do, and having it as kind of a mindfulness space. And what was even more interesting, and I did get very excited about, was another game where you go in and you can choose things and see it from that perspective. So you can go into this game, you can be a sheep, you can see things from the point of view of a blade of grass, and then you can go down into the microcosm. So you can become an atom, and then you become an electron, and then a quark. And at that point, obviously, because you're so small that you're just basically floating in space, then you start to encounter lectures on the nature of reality and physics, and things that I would definitely call sort of mindfulness and challenging and philosophical. And people are engaging with that and they're interested in that. And when I kind of saw that, I saw for the first time, I could really see an online space that I wanted to get engaged with, that I could get really excited about. Because if you can create, if people are going into those spaces, people who are looking for philosophy and mindfulness, I think are also looking for storytelling and poetry, but they maybe don't know where to find it. And they are looking in places that I am definitely not. And I don't think other storytellers are. And I think that at that moment, there was a real space for kind of the conversations that Lucy and I had been having about the fire, about what it is to be human, about stories about that. And kind of, we've been particularly looking at the Prometheus myth, which is all about fire and that divine spark, that moment, that kind of what is it that is intrinsically human that makes us the way that we are. I think that there's a real possibility in that crossover space. And at that moment, I could see something that was, I'm going to show you the very basic thing that we have come up with before I tell you my grand scheme, because otherwise you're going to be really disappointed. So this is just a terrain builder that Leon has made. Obviously, designing games and building terrains is quite time intensive. So this is very much just a kind of a first spot. So this is Mozilla Hubs. I'm going to come out of this if I can. Right, so going back to that idea of a labyrinth, this is a very basic labyrinth, but it does have a fire in the middle. I've not invited you into this room, but this is the room. I am currently there. If you were in there, you would see that I've got an avatar. And it works that you can only have a limited number of people within the space. If people come up, you see their avatar. You could have a live performance around this fire in here, but you can also just pop into it anytime. It is in virtual reality, so you could have a device. You could have, you know, one of the things that you put your cardboard box, you put your phone in, or you could have your headset on and just walk around here. I'm using keys to navigate you. And as you walk around, you can insert things. And one of the things that I'm really excited by is kind of cartoon, something that's obviously not real, going into something that is much more a real thing. So you can just go into these bubbles of absolute reality and film that are filmed from real life. And I love that the way they just kind of appear as spheres. And you can also have the sound, so the sound is binaural, and if you were with this with the headset on, the sound would be telling you where these bubbles would be. Hang on, I'm now going to just have to turn the sound off on that. Where's Google gone? Right, close that down. So that's just very much a prototype, but the idea of kind of building a space that is sort of labyrinth based, and maybe you have a loop that is an urban loop, and a loop that is a forest. There are different things that you can find there and stumble on, and you can spend a short time there or a long time. I think it's really exciting. And one of the things about this whole kind of starting to work with stuff online for me is about engagement and about how you tell stories in different space. And I've been finding that as I think as a storyteller, I generally don't share my journey particularly. I don't share my own story, and I haven't seen other storytellers particularly doing that. When Lucy and I are working together, we have so many conversations about the way that we portray something, about what this bit really means, about what the crux of the matter is. And you only see, you know, you're generally working towards a 2-hour performance, and in that performance you just see the cap of the iceberg of what we've actually decided to show you at the end. And I think in those kind of spaces we can share that conversation. We can take bits that are not going, well, what do you think about this, and let's talk about it, and we can try telling things from different points of view. Particularly when you're working with myth doesn't work as a linear narrative. There are all little different bits here and there and everywhere, because sometimes they contradict each other completely. They don't necessarily work in a time scale. And if you've got something that is a labyrinth, that you can find bits and pieces as you go through, so you could still follow a straight line and you could still follow a narrative, but you can go and find all of those other little bits and perspectives and points of view that inform that. And one of the other things that I've been talking with Lisa about is breadcrumbs, and that thing that, yes, I want to engage online. I want to talk to all of those people that can't get to see me live, you know, that are on the other side of the world, or have duties looking after people, or are stuck in bed. But there's also kind of ways to go from a space like that into live discussion groups where they can talk with me, where they could talk to other audience members and have real-time, real life conversations. You can sell tickets to having a real life performance at a certain time within that space. And I suppose in some ways it's just kind of, it's an evolution of the website, you know, kind of where you could find lots of different things, but it's something that you move around physically and you engage with it in a different way. And when we first started this process, I was very much kind of thinking this is going to be a physical space, and yes, we're going to look at the online and digital stuff as well. But I can now really get excited by this online space that has actually meaning and proper engagement. So that was our first artist. We've still got others to come. So one of those is Andy McEwen, and we're going to be looking with him much more in the physical space. And obviously I do have a tendency that I'm very full of all the stuff that we've got from Liam, because I've just done that. So I might be talking about totally different things once I've talked to Andy. But at the moment, he's somebody that we're going to go and see about light projection. And I'm really excited about kind of, so you don't see floor projections that much. And he's talking about just doing really simple things like putting a hopscotch in light, or you know, kind of, we all know that game of where you don't walk on the cracks in a pavement because there's crocodiles or the sharks. You can actually have crocodiles and sharks that you have to jump over, and how people kind of engage with that, and having very focused sonic and sound beams. And also as a storyteller, I'm interested in sound, and Lucy's a musician. She's interested in sound a lot as well. And actually when Andy mentioned the word Foley, Lucy shot about 3 foot off of her chair and kind of got really, really excited about the idea of Foley. And I think that thing of kind of having really good visuals, but also really interesting sound is very exciting, and kind of putting those together, which we are playing with in a very small way at the moment. So Lucy and I are working with different technology artists, but we're also really lucky that we've got this time to reflect and to talk to each other and to play, lots and lots of play. And so she's not quite the third technical artist, but the other person that we've had as a consultant is my 13-year-old daughter, Chloe, who turned around and said, "Mum, you need to be on TikTok. Like, you know, I think you'd be good on TikTok, actually." No, TikTok. So she came and introduced us to TikTok, and also CapCut, which has been a revelation, because I've really struggled with film editing and all the things that I thought would be quite intuitive, like iMovie, just haven't been. So the thing that Lucy and I've started doing is making videos for TikTok and taking a myth and telling it through that. So I don't know, do you all know what TikTok is? Well done, Mike. So it's a bit like Twitter, but with film. Okay, so you put up videos that are between 15 seconds and a minute long, and it's great how it focuses you so that you have to do something in less than a minute, which actually is really good for looking at story and really good at looking at what the heart of what you want to say is. And also, if we end up doing a physical version of kind of a labyrinth and you're asking people to move through, everything's got to be quite quick. You want people to be moving. They're not going to stand around for ages. They're going to have aching legs, and you want people to be able to, you know, have more than one person in a labyrinth at a time, you know, so you might need to space them out, but you need to keep them moving through. So it's also kind of quite an interesting way of starting to look at that. So I won't play you the whole of our series, but I'm gonna play you just a couple that of the things that we've just been playing with.
Some earth and started to mould it.
I'll put it back to the beginning.
Suitable. Zeus wanted a pet. All the other gods had pets, so he hoiked out some spit, gave it to Prometheus, and said, "Make me a better pet than anybody else." Prometheus took the spit, mixed it with some earth, and started to mould it. The only pet suitable for the king of the gods would be a pet in the shape of the gods, 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head. And when he'd finished, Prometheus was delighted. He made a whole group of them, all the different colours of the rainbow. And when they were all made, he set them to dry, and the first of the humans were born. Prometheus sat, admiring the beautiful little humans he had created. He loved all of them, but particularly the purple, green, and blue ones. He sat waiting for Zeus to come, bringing Athena to breathe life into them. He was sure he could hear the footsteps now. Sorry.
Stop. I'm not going to make you look.
Zeus and Athena.
Stop. So that's just a couple. And obviously the other thing that we've discovered about TikTok is it is a bit of a home for cheese. So we have been having lots of fun with all the editing and filter buttons and being a bit cheesy. So that's where we're at. And I suppose we're just at that point of looking to the future and seeing when we might start working physically and in the physical world. If we give up with that and just kind of do that online, which in some way I'm definitely going to want to do because of all the accessibility issues that there are and just the people that we can reach. But I'm going to shut up because I realise that I've gone on for longer than I meant to. And what I'm really interested in is it's just comments and feedback and things that you think would be good that we're doing, other pointers of people that we might like to. You've all gone really still, you've frozen, so you can't actually hear me now, can you? My internet connection died. No, Mike's moving. Is it just me and Mike online?
You don't worry, Amy.
Oh, you can. All right. So yeah, so I know there's not much time, and obviously, I mean, you know, we can. I know all of you. I'm really happy to continue these conversations at any point. But yes, feedback and comments of things that we're doing that are good, people that we might want to work with, things that we should look at. Any advice, comments, feedback would be very, very welcome. And just thank you again for coming and listening and being part of this.
Okay, so as Amy said, we've actually pretty much run our course in terms of the time that we'd allocated. I don't know if anybody wants to actually stop on to just give Amy a bit of actual feedback now, but obviously if you need to go on to real life, that's absolutely fine as well. Any messages, any phone calls, any pigeons, even if you want to use pigeons or smoke, do let us know. But thank you for joining us. We'll just hang around a little bit longer, and as I say, those of us that do remain, yeah, okay, we'll have a chat. The rest of you, ta-ta, who has to go, and thank you very, very much. Okay, anybody going? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Happy birthday, Richard.
Keep in touch with you all. Thank you. Okay, so are the rest of us just stopping on for a few moments? Yep, everybody okay with that? Obviously unmute yourselves. Is there anything that anybody would like to sort of say at this point?
I would
Like-
absolutely
oh,
love to see the Myth Stories website in one of those labyrinth environments.
Yeah.
With all
So-
the different stories, encountering them in different places. It would be absolutely fantastic.
So what's the costings for the virtual world you're putting together?
Well, we're not putting it together yet. I mean, so at the moment we're in a research and development project. So what we're going to be doing is start writing a bid for whatever actually we do want to do, and then that's when we have to put parameters on it. So one of the things about this is getting the costings together. But with something like that, it is going to be quite expensive, and how expensive it is depends on the size and the quality and the amount of time it takes to build. So I mean, it could be enormous, it could be, you know, substantial, but not massive. I mean, so yeah, it's as long as a piece of string, really.
Yeah, because that platform, that Mozilla Hubs, was actually you didn't have to pay for it. It was about Leon taking the time to insert the footage.
Mm.
So there's a few components, but if you had a better functioning online forum, you know, you can pay different amounts for different places that have different facilities, like for meeting and access, and how you it's a piece of string.
What I would say, I was just going to say, in terms of interest in this area at the moment, certainly in regards to the Arts Council, it is an area that they are, I know from experience of working with artists, they are funding artists who are working in these virtual spaces and are working in the 3D world of Mozilla Hubs and all of these different virtual reality spaces. So it is something that, you know, is very much current. And the other thing is, another artist that I have been working with, one of the things that she's learned very quickly, she's been doing training in relation to her actually her developing these spaces. And she's found very quickly that it's actually much easier and much better to employ technicians who can do this, and basically to have that collaboration with the technicians. So, and just going then onto the realms of these virtual spaces, a lot of these, you know, that would be called gaming sites are now very interested in collaborations with different forms, including artists as well as scientists, environmentalists, all sorts of things. So it is opening out rather than closing down at the moment.
Yeah, it's also an area where masses of people are. I mean,
Yeah.
Totally.
And I mean, with saying that, it's totally about looking at these, getting diverse audiences, and sometimes thinking about, do we always expect people to come to our space that we inhabit, or do we now need to inhabit the spaces where they are comfortable? And I think it needs to be probably a bit of both. But I think it is this realization of taking on these new and different platforms, and just sort of going on to the TikTok ones that Amy and Lucy have done. Again, artists now in their droves are looking at TikTok as the platform, as opposed to Instagram and other platforms. And one of the main reasons is it is a space that currently is inhabited mainly by younger people, but of course all us oldies now are trying to get in there as well. So it could become like Facebook, where it's like, oh, you know, nobody wants it anymore. But you know, that's what's happening currently.
Oh, I think it's really exciting, Amy. One of the things that I've been thinking about over lockdown, and well before really, is how we can convey our space, our garden, to people that can't visit. One of the things that we experimented with is doing a children's workshop, because we've kind of got an archive of photographs of our site through the seasons. So we did it in a very simple way by compiling the photographs and doing a seasonal tour and stopping along the way for activities. But to be able to do that in a 3-dimensional environment would be really exciting. And I love the multimedia aspect and the fact that it's illustrated storytelling. It's almost like stepping into a picture book, isn't it?
It is, but there's also, I think, yeah, it could be like stepping into a picture book, but there's also kind of definitely asking for responses as well.
Yeah.
So the spaces where you can just sit back and listen, but actually there's going to be, wanting to strike the balance where people are still asking people to really imagine it as well.
I think it really does lead itself to not only be a viewer, but it is about engagement. And of course, obviously, with just seeing it on a flat screen doesn't really give you the same impression as if you're actually within that space. I know a lot of artists who have disabilities, physical disabilities, are very interested in inhabiting spaces where suddenly they are fully mobile, shall I say, as an avatar to be able to go around spaces. So there's that element to it as well. There's an artist called Sue Austin who actually is a wheelchair user who takes people swimming in the sea in these amazing 3D underwater places, and she sort of encourages people to touch fishes and all sorts of things, go and get bits of seaweed or whatever. But I think one of the things that Lucy and Amy really bring to this sort of space is a narrative. I think a lot of them sort of fail to have these like guides or narratives or stories or whatever you want to call them. So I think that's also an area that's really got potential.
Yeah, agree with you.
Yeah, another artist has sprung to mind, but of course I can't remember his name. But there's some work done by the Sense charity in Birmingham, and they worked with a sound artist who's Birmingham based. But one of the things they were doing was giving people who with quite severe physical disabilities the experience of connecting and listening to plants. It's just quite amazing. It'll come to me, the name of this artist, so I'll let you know as soon as it does.
And as a creative producer, Moya, is it an area that you think you could see yourself and Boundary Way going?
Yeah, because I suppose I'm just really interested in collaborations and multidisciplinary collaborations. So, and combined with the idea of engaging people virtually, it seems a natural step to explore what we can do with new technology. Yeah. So I'm just going off another tangent, thinking about another thing. One of the things that we've been doing a lot over lockdown is commissioning poetry, and there's been a poetry app called Over Here, which we've signed up to, and that's been devised by a man called Tom Peel, who's Birmingham based. And the idea of Over Here is that it can map locations to poems, so I haven't tested it out yet actually, because you have to kind of get to these places, but we've actually got 3 poems that have been written inspired by Boundary Way, and you can actually go on site with your mobile phone and connect and listen to these poems in the location that they're written about. So I know he's developing that in wider than poetry. He's thinking about he's a musician as well, so he's thinking about wider kind of sound and music as well. But
yeah,
triggered me to remember that.
I know that app, and it does work really, really well. It's a really good way of accessing poetry. And I was also, one of the things I told Amy and Lucy about was Boundary Way's amazing polytunnel, and I was just thinking in regards to the sort of spot stepping stones or hopscotches or whatever that Amy and Lucy are going to be working with Andy on very, very soon, and about that idea of taking something like that, these sound spots, into a space like your polytunnel. Could be quite interesting.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. And I suppose also experiencing that virtually maybe as well, because it is such a an enclosed space that's got, I think there's got quite a special atmosphere. So yeah, really interesting to work with. I mean, it's all, it's a brilliant performance space. We have had storytelling in there actually.
Yeah, very, very atmospheric space, definitely. Yeah. So I guess, folks, is that okay for today? And then we'll see what we get, and perhaps all meet again.
I think so. Thanks ever so much, Moya. And no, over here sounds great as well. So have a look at that. And really nice to see you again.
And you, yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's good to meet everyone. Sorry,
I'll be in touch, Moya, as well. Okay, so
Thanks,
yes,
other stuff as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So and I guess Richard, I'm not sure whether he's there or not.
I think he went off on the phone, didn't he?
Yeah.
I'm going to say goodbye then.
Okay, see you, Moya.
Bye. Bye.
Shall we say ta-ta, Richard? Because we know you're busy on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. What I had to take.
I was about to zap you.
Oh, your phone's going to be busy today. Everybody's going to be telling you, seeing how you are and happy birthday. It's good.
I'm stopping now. That's it. It's me time from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, Richard, though, obviously you and I know Andy from you know Andy anyway.
Yes, yeah.
And just sort of thinking about that fabulous space that you have got in the Dye House, and Amy and Lucy with their now sort of collaborating with him, it might be something that might warrant future discussion.
Absolutely. I mean, as you know, Andy's been involved with the Mill project for as long as the Friends have, so we're getting on for 10 years. And most years at our open days, he would put on some sort of a show. And then a couple of years ago, he did the one with the silhouettes across the top floor of the mill.
Yeah.
That was through December and January. So yeah, we know Andy well. I mean, he's kind of one of our flex mill artists, so he's great to work with.
Yeah, and I was just kind of thinking, sorry, Amy, I was just going to say, I was just thinking as well in relation to the Arts Council bid that was stopped. Obviously things have now changed. Might be one to sort of just pop in the ether of thought.
Yes, yeah, we need to look at a different project. The project was to decorate the hoardings, and of course by now, by the time we get it up and running, hopefully the hoardings will be going in 12 months' time anyway. So
yeah, absolutely.
But there's plenty of options. There's plenty of stuff. Oddly enough, I'd like to do something with music, but that's my. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your album as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Very good. Well done. Liked, shared, and well done. Really brilliant.
Well, it's only been 50 years in the making, so.
It didn't take you long, did it? No.
I think COVID kind of, I don't know, focused my mind at the end of it. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good to see you soon, and see you soon.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye now.
Last slurp.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, thanks, Anne-Marie.
Okay, is that okay, everyone? And we'll see if we get any other feedback and take it from there. Yeah.
How are you feeling, Amy?
Yeah, I don't know. What did you think? Huh?
How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. I'm sorry I went on a bit long, so we didn't. I mean, I think the chat at the end was kind of the important bit, wasn't it? We didn't quite get to do it. So you live and learn. I think maybe we should have given them all 3 minutes, and then you might have stuck to 5. 3 minutes is long actually on Zoom as well, kind of, if you forget how much you can do in 3 minutes. But
I don't know, some of them took 10, and you don't know, but I think the point is anyway is I think some of the things they were addressing were of use. I think some of the things they were addressing probably weren't of use either. You know, and like I said to you, in relation to something like this, maybe it's something that we could build upon, and particularly with people that we found interesting, rather than just a sort of a general thing. And hopefully some of those people will get back in touch in relation to, you know, being future partners or supporting in some way.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what Karen says, she's going to send some email, some feedback. Des and Ali said they're going to get back to me with some feedback. Naomi's put a bit up in the chat, and is, you know, happy to follow up at any time. And it's just good for people to know what we're doing as well, isn't it? And so we should see.
Can I just remind you as well that we are recording this part as well, so just so that we know that as well. Okay.